NATO's 75th anniversary marks a significant milestone in the history of this political and military alliance. Founded on April 4, 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, emerged in a post-World War II context as the Allied powers sought to establish a collective security structure to counter the growing tensions of the Cold War. In its first decades, NATO played a crucial role in containing Soviet expansionism and defending Western member countries. However, with the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War in the 1990s, NATO's relevance was questioned by some and debates arose over its future purpose. In recent decades, however, NATO has experienced a renewal of its strategic importance. Russian aggression in Ukraine, cybersecurity concerns, international terrorism, and other emerging threats have led to a rediscovery of the value of the Atlantic Alliance as a bulwark of security and stability in Europe and beyond. In addition, NATO's renewed commitment to collective defense and the modernization of its military capabilities has strengthened its position as a relevant force in the global security landscape. The alliance has broadened its focus to address not only traditional military threats, but also the hybrid and cyber challenges it faces in the 21st century. Welcome back to the channel. Make sure to stay until the end of the video where we will discuss why the US is close to leaving NATO and the global impact this would have. Let's begin. NATO's resurgence in recent years has been closely related to several key factors that have contributed to strengthening its relevance and responsiveness to new threats and challenges in the international security landscape. One of these factors is the increase in defense spending by European NATO member countries. This increase has been seen as a direct response to regional and global security concerns, as well as the alliance's expectations that members share the defense burden more equitably. This increased spending has allowed for further modernization of European countries' military capabilities and has strengthened their commitment to collective security. In addition, the entry of Sweden and Finland into NATO has been another important aspect of the alliance's resurgence. These two countries, which have historically maintained a position of neutrality, have chosen to move closer to NATO due to security concerns in the region, especially after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. NATO's renewed commitment to defending its eastern border has also been instrumental in its resurgence. In the face of Russia's aggressive actions, including the annexation of Crimea and the conflict in Ukraine, NATO has strengthened its military presence in the Baltics and Eastern Europe, as well as enhanced its rapid response capabilities to potential threats in the region. However, a number of internal NATO problems have just emerged due to a number of challenges, including the emergence of tensions and disagreements among some of its members. Two of the most prominent problems are Hungary and Turkey's flirtations with Russia, and the possibility of US withdrawal from the alliance. First, Hungary and Turkey have shown worrying trends toward closer ties with Russia to the detriment of NATO cohesion. For example, the Hungarian government, led by Viktor Orban, has come under fire for its domestic policies and its increasingly close relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This has raised concerns about Hungary's loyalty to NATO's core principles and values. On the other hand, Turkey has experienced tensions with several NATO members, particularly the United States, due to a number of political and strategic disputes. These tensions have intensified over Turkey's role in the Syrian conflict, its purchases of Russian air defense systems, and its actions in the Aegean Sea. These disagreements have raised questions about coherence and solidarity within the alliance. In addition, the possibility of a US withdrawal from NATO has been a source of concern and speculation in recent years, as it would have profound implications for security and stability both on the European continent and globally. First, a US withdrawal from NATO would have a significant impact on the alliance's collective defense capabilities. The United States is the largest contributor to NATO in terms of funding and military resources, and its exit would leave a significant gap in the alliance's ability to respond to potential threats and crises. Moreover, US withdrawal could undermine NATO's cohesion and unity, as the United States has historically been a key leader in the alliance and has played a central role in decision-making and coordination of military operations. Without the active participation of the United States, it would be more difficult for NATO to maintain its relevance and effectiveness as a collective defense organization. On the political front, a U.S. withdrawal from NATO could weaken the U.S. commitment to European security and stability in the region. This could lead to greater uncertainty and volatility in Europe, especially at a time when the region faces challenges such as Russian aggression, international terrorism, and migration. On the other hand, a U.S. withdrawal from NATO would also have important implications for the United States. First, it could weaken U.S. influence and global leadership, as NATO has been a key pillar of U.S. foreign policy since its inception. In addition, a U.S. withdrawal could damage transatlantic relations and undermine the confidence of European allies in the ability and willingness of the United States to defend them in the event of a threat. The importance of the United States in NATO is fundamental and extends to multiple aspects, ranging from its contribution in armaments and nuclear defense to its capacity for influence and leadership in the alliance. As the world's largest economy and a major arms producer, the United States plays a crucial role in providing resources and advanced military technology that strengthens the alliance's defensive capabilities. In addition, the United States is the only NATO member country that possesses both tactical and strategic nuclear weapons. This makes the United States a key element in the alliance's nuclear deterrent and in ensuring security for member countries, especially in an environment of nuclear threats such as those emanating from Russia. In terms of intelligence and surveillance capabilities, the United States also plays a leading role. Its advanced intelligence and technology network, which includes satellites, drones, and surveillance systems, provides NATO with crucial information for real-time detection and monitoring of potential threats. In addition to its military and intelligence contributions, the United States exerts significant influence on NATO's decision-making and strategic direction. As one of the alliance's founders and its principal political and military actor, the United States has a prominent voice in NATO's defense policy, military operations, and foreign relations discussions. The United States' continued presence and engagement with NATO is critical to maintaining the alliance's cohesion and effectiveness in an increasingly complex and changing security environment. Its leadership and ability to mobilize resources and political support are vital in addressing challenges such as Russian aggression, international terrorism, and cybersecurity. The future of European defense centers on the question of whether Europe should strengthen NATO or develop an independent European army. Both options present significant advantages and challenges, which has generated intense debate within the European political and security community. On the one hand, the option of strengthening NATO implies maintaining and reinforcing the existing transatlantic alliance with the United States as its main pillar. This would ensure the continuity of military and security cooperation between Europe and the United States, drawing on the military resources and capabilities of both sides to address common security challenges. Strengthening NATO would also allow Europe to maintain the U.S. nuclear security umbrella and benefit from military interoperability with U.S. and other allied forces. In addition, NATO provides an established institutional framework and a network of diplomatic relationships that facilitate defense and security cooperation at the regional and international levels. However, some critics argue that relying too heavily on NATO may limit Europe's autonomy and ability to act in defense and security matters. Moreover, uncertainty about the United States' continued commitment to the alliance has led some to question NATO's long-term reliability as a security guarantee for Europe. On the other hand, the option of developing an independent European military would imply the creation of an autonomous and cohesive European military force capable of making decisions and undertaking operations independently of the United States. This would increase Europe's strategic autonomy and strengthen its ability to respond more nimbly and effectively to regional and international security challenges. In addition, an independent European military would enable Europe to develop a common defense policy and a more coherent European security identity, which could contribute to greater political and military integration in the European Union. It could also boost the European defense industry and foster cooperation in research and development of advanced military technology. However, the development of an independent European military would face several obstacles, including the need to overcome the political divergences and national interests of EU member states. In addition, the duplication of military structures between NATO and a European army could generate friction and tensions within the transatlantic alliance. Consideration of possible future scenarios, including the possibility of U.S. withdrawal from NATO, is crucial to understanding and addressing the security and defense challenges facing Europe and the world at large. These scenarios raise important questions about the balance of power, regional stability, and the international security architecture. One of the most hotly debated scenarios is the withdrawal of the United States from NATO. While this possibility may seem remote, it cannot be completely ruled out due to ongoing political and strategic changes. A U.S. withdrawal would have significant implications for European security and transatlantic stability. First, a U.S. withdrawal would considerably weaken NATO's defense capabilities. The United States is the main contributor in terms of military and financial capabilities within the alliance, and its absence would leave a vacuum that would be difficult to fill. This could undermine NATO's military deterrence and increase Europe's vulnerability to potential external threats, such as Russian aggression. Moreover, a U.S. withdrawal could cause divisions within NATO and weaken the alliance's political and military cohesion. European countries could find themselves at odds over how to address regional and global security challenges, making it difficult to make decisions and implement common policies. Another possible scenario is the continuation of transatlantic collaboration within NATO, but with a greater emphasis on burden sharing and European autonomy. This could involve an increase in defense spending by European countries and greater military integration within the European Union, with the aim of strengthening European defense capabilities and reducing dependence on the United States. However, this scenario would also face significant challenges, such as political resistance and unwillingness of some European countries to increase their defense spending. In addition, uncertainty about the continued U.S. commitment to NATO could raise doubts about the long-term viability of this transatlantic collaboration. Thank you very much for staying until the end of the video, my friend, and if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of my videos.